Yo, comrades, what's up? Before we move on to Call of Duty World... Wait, what's the next one? Cold War. We have to take a little detour because I found two handheld Call of Duty Black Ops games that take place... Well, there's Call of Duty Black Ops DS, which seems like it was made at the exact same time as the Call of Duty game, the normal one. And it takes place at exactly the same time in the continuity. And so I played that, and it was real rough. We'll get to that in a minute. And then there's a PlayStation Vita one called something. We'll get to that too. That takes place between Call of Duty Black Ops and Call of Duty Cold War. Yeah. And it stars like the homies, including Woods and Mason. So hopefully we'll find out what happened to Woods, because according to Black Ops, he's dead. But we all know he shows up. And so hopefully we'll get an answer how that all went down at some point in the future. But let's talk about the Black Ops DS to start with, and then we'll follow up in the same video the Vita version, which I think it's Declassified, Black Ops Declassified. And because the DS game, there's not much going on, and story-wise. But playing this game was pretty interesting. So it's a first-person shooter, and you use the pad, like the control pad on the left side, to kind of move around a little bit, but you also are required to use the like A, B, X, Y buttons to look around. And then you have the stylus, which you can use to shoot, which I did not try because I'm emulating this thing, first of all. But I don't even understand how that would work. Maybe I should have looked into it. So I was like, no, I'll just have this thing be super sensitive about auto aiming, which the game would do about 1/3 of the time. So it was kind of a slog. To be fair, though, at least on the easiest difficulty, which I am playing these games on, my mini levels, so the levels are split into kind of like 3 different main levels. There is what you're with a crew, so there's you and 2 other guys. And if you just kind of hang back, those 2 guys will kill everything. Like, this is the greatest AI that has ever existed in a Call of Duty game ever, because all you have to do is just like not get killed, and they will clean up everything. Now, on the flip side, you will be required to play all by yourself in certain missions. And those missions are the hardest by far, because your ability to aim, because the auto aim like works like I said, 1/3 of the time it'll be, you'll aim down the sight near a guy. I'm not even saying like across the screen, but you'll kind of get your crosshair close to where the guy's at, and you'll aim, and it'll lock in on him. There are times my cursor is on a guy, and I will zoom in, and it will move off that guy to like another enemy that's somewhere else on the map, I guess. It's like, and then you have to like drag it back over, and if the enemy that it's detecting that I cannot see moves, it'll drag it back, and it's like, oh Lord Christ, what in the world? Now, the only exception to this is when you're using a sniper rifle, which you get in 2 levels, and that was the best thing to have until I ran out of ammunition, and then I was sad. You also get grenades, but you have to use the stylus, which I have my mouse set up to kind of be a stylus, so you have to use the stylus. So imagine holding this thing in your hand, and you want to switch. You have to be holding the stylus while you're trying to play this thing, or I wouldn't even use the stylus. You just like click, you hit the button as hard as you can on the dual screen, on the bottom screen. But the game wants you. It expects you. It keeps saying like, okay, so use the stylus, click the other weapon, click the grenade, and then you can fire it like a normal weapon, and then switch back. And it's like, what? Which would make sense if the game like allowed for that. But I'm playing on the easiest difficulty, and before I put in an action replay cheat, yes, I had to use an action replay cheat, because on the levels where you're by yourself, I would get destroyed, like instant, like so fast, because it's like, I'm literally be on my knees, so you can press down twice and get on your knees. So I'd be on my knees crawling from room to room as slow as humanly possible. And then guys would just like pop out of nowhere, right? Probably being generated at that point. And then I'd have to like back up and then like curve around the room really slow. And as you're curving around the room, you're just praying to God that you can see them before they see you. And if not, they would shoot the shit out of you. And then sometimes there'd be up to 3 guys. And you would just die like immediately. And if you got too close, because sometimes I'd be trying to like edge in there to shoot him. And the reason you have to do this is because it's so slow, and it's like aiming is like virtually impossible. Like, it's so hard to do. So if I'm trying to like get myself positioned so I can aim and shoot these guys, most guys go down pretty quick. Sometimes they just run into the room where you're at and stab you with a knife. And you could try to stab them first, but that only worked half the time. And there was like a level where you're by yourself crawling through a tunnel and dudes just come at you to stab you, like around every fucking corner. And so you just have to be ready, like it to be like shaking with your hand on that fucking right trigger. So the second they appear, you're like click, 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 like stab. and so it goes from like, I don't even have to play this game to like one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, to a point where I had to cheat. And I couldn't cheat to make myself invincible. I would have done that. The action replay code is like massive health, which it was until you got stabbed, and then you almost died. And then you'd have to like, the screen would be blinking red, and guys are still shooting. Like that, the screen starts blinking red, and it's like, you might as well just like die, to be honest. Because you can't see shit. And then you're still trying to like see stuff, and then the auto-targeting is still all over the place, and like, I'm like, God damn, how? And then you'd have vehicle sections, and those you could just do nothing, and you'd beat them. Like literally nothing. Like you'd be like, all right, fly this helicopter, and you could like put down your DS, because this is what I did in the emulator at one point. I set down the controller I was using to go check on like a kid, because like middle of the night or early morning when I play these usually, and I came back and I'd beaten the level, and I was like, huh, okay. And they're like, oh, you got to do this, and no, you just enjoy the ride. And so part of the insanity was just like it would just go from like excessively difficult to like super easy. And I can't imagine the difficulty would make that even any harder on any of those settings, but maybe it does. I don't know. Anyway, that's playing the fucking game. It was a wild ride. I got through it though because I cheated a lot. Anyway, so we start off and we're Staff Sergeant Taylor, and this I think is the only level, this is like the only time we play this guy. He's going to Cuba because guess what happened? It's March 1968, and Mason, Captain Mason, and Shaw, Sergeant Shaw, got captured while they were out to like kill Castro, right? So this presumably is taking place now. I truly believe the company making this game and the company and Treyarch did not speak, barely at all, about what was going on in the Treyarch Black Ops game, because stuff kind of gets, there's like a loose understanding, like there's like a whole point where you're like trying to stop a weapon, but it's never called like a gas weapon as far as I can remember. It's obviously supposed to be Nova 6. And then Mason's brought up a couple times, but like the timelines don't really shake out that well. And then it's like, so it's just kind of confusing. And then there's like a point where it's like, okay, you do this while Mason's doing this. And I'm like, isn't Mason in the gulag right now? And like, maybe I got the dates wrong, but it's like, so did he go back to Cuba and then get captured again? And this time Castro was like, no, I'm just going to keep you this time. So it doesn't make any sense. But here we go. So the game actually starts in 1968 with Shaw, Sergeant Shaw, who's kind of the main character. He's being grilled about when he was in prison with Mason. And then he talks about how like, oh yeah, we were sent to Cuba to take care of Castro. And that, you know, and then we get the brief to Staff Sergeant Taylor, who's being told it's all over the place. Who's told that there are two guys who are not supposed to be in Cuba who are being held in like a prison on the coast, and that it's our job to go pull them out. And so we tag along. Oh no, we're Sergeant Hayes. Where was Staff Sergeant Taylor? I don't know, I wrote that down somewhere. Anyway, so we're Sergeant Hayes, and we're with Staff Sergeant Ruiz and Captain Patterson. And Hayes is the one who, like, he's important here, and then later on, Shaw just, like, replaces him, and we're done with Hayes forever. Anyway, so we head into the compound, we kill some guards, we go through, then we get to, like, a mission, and then we kill a guy. Let's see. Okay, and then we find a cellar door and head down. And then we find, that's right. Then we find a hostage situation, and we got to kill the guy who's holding the hostage. And I don't know if you could kill the hostage, because I just like shot randomly with the janky controls and it worked. And then there's like an artillery barrage at the mission. And so then we head down into the catacombs to escape. So like an hour later, we're taking over Shaw, and he's in this prison, but it's in a different prison. So Hayes and company were given like bad intel, and so they're in the wrong place. But that doesn't matter, because Shaw's in a prison, and he's about to get beat up by a guard, but then he kills that fucking guard after they go back and forth. And then what our mission now is to find some plans and then contact the command. And so we do that. So we go find the plans. We get to a radio. We contact command. They're like, you're not supposed to be there. And it's like, yeah, I know. But then we're not rescued because Hayes and those guys, again, they were in the wrong place. And then we go back to the catacombs, and Hayes and those guys, they slide down a hill. They take a defensive position, and then we enter like after we get through the catacombs. And then there's like a strategy game. So you have your three guys, and you can put two of them facing two different directions. And the game literally tells you where guys are coming in from. So you just put them facing those directions, and then you can just like take a nap while they kill those guys. And that goes on for a little bit. But that was actually kind of fun. It was like a little strategy business. And then we finish with that. We clear the river, and we find a Cuban helicopter, so we take it. Heading back to Shaw, he's heading to the coast to meet up with this team now because the extraction team was in the wrong place, but now we got word that none of this is told. It's just like, we get missions, and it's like, all right, you're going to go to the coast to meet the extraction team, and it's like, I thought the extraction team was in the wrong place, but I guess we found out that that's where they're going to be, even though they're not there yet. So we escape through so many Cuban guards, like so many. I like no idea how I would have survived this portion of the game without cheating, because literally you're like in an open little arena, and the dudes just like are streaming in from every side, and even with like the massive health cheat, that I was getting like, I almost died like multiple times. Like my screen was like blaring red. And then let's see, and then okay, yeah, and then eventually, after just like killing dudes in here for a few minutes, we switch over to flying the helicopter. The helicopter flies around and blows shit up, and it was just it was just like eye roll, blow up. It's completely ridiculous. Like the whole world is like on fire, and you're just destroying everything. And helicopters show up and fire at you, but they always miss, and you just murder the shit out of everything. And eventually we get to the spot where Shaw's at, and we blow the shit out of that place, and like, whatever, fuck Shaw, and we rescue him. And then we head back to 1968, where their interrogation with Shaw. And we find out that Mason also escaped, and that he had intel on a new Russian weapon, which is Nova 6. The game never calls it Nova 6, but we know it's Nova 6. Then we head out to rescue a Russian defector who is in Vietnam-ish area, help us find a weapon. And so we need to make sure that this guy, Yuri, that he survived so we can help him. And we show up and he's already on the team. So it's Shaw, Captain Patterson, who was on Hayes' team, and then Yuri. So we start killing the new enemies, which is fun because we spent a long time killing like just Cuban guards. And now we're killing like Viet Cong or whatever. And it's not long before Shaw falls down a fucking pit. And this is the part where we're like in a little catacombs or a little tunnel, and we gotta like stab guys out of there. So anyway, we do that for a little bit. We find our crew. We like burn down a fucking village. And they're like, oh man, something. And then for some reason Yuri's like, let me tell you about Afghanistan. And you're like, what? So he says official sniper on the Russian team. And so we run out, we get into like a big firefight like immediately. There's like panzer strikes and everything. And then we finally get to like the boat to escape Afghanistan or whatever, and then Yuri gets hit from behind by like the guy he's with, the captain he's with, and the captain did it, and he did it, took all his weapons, and he says, and Yuri's like, why, what are you doing? And the captain's like, cause Mother Russia. So Yuri wakes up later on the side of this river in the desert of Afghanistan, and he's like, fuck, at least I got a knife. It's like, cool. So we go and we kill some Afghanis to get our weapon back, and we fight through a bunch of assholes, and then we find some Americans, and the Americans, we rescue them, and one of the Americans is like a real Russophobe, and he's like, fucking Ruskies, fucking hate this, and the other guy's like, hey, shut the fuck up, man, this guy just saved our life, he could have easily killed us, he helped us out, and you're like riding on the back of a truck, and then it's another one of these like vehicle things where you're just like in the back of a truck, and you can switch between like a rocket or an RPG and a machine gun, and you got to destroy a couple helicopters, which I don't think I ever hit the helicopter, even when I was aiming directly at it, and it eventually just exploded, and I was like, good job, you got it, and I was like, awesome. And that's how Yuri joined the Americans from the Russians. That's how he defected. I guess that's the reason he told us the story. Then we're back in Vietnam, and we control Captain West, who's in a helicopter. I don't know who Captain West is or why we're doing this, but that's what we're doing. So you just hold down machine gun and missiles, and the game just like plays itself for a while. And at some point I managed to die, and that's because I wasn't paying attention in the game because I zoned out. And the game is like, all right, here's some napalm, blow up this village. And I was like, oh, so then you have to use the stylus to like click on the napalm on the lower screen, and then it burns the village to the ground. And it's like, awesome. And then we fly around some more, and then it's like, oh good, there's Shaw and crew. And then we go down to Shaw, and now we're in a boat with the big machine gun thing, and it's another weapon, it's another vehicle challenge, which is not a challenge at all. And we just like blow the shit out of stuff, and we climb up in this village, and it's time to do the defense game again. And so we just do that, super easy. The chopper at that point that we were flying, I guess, with Captain West before it comes to rescue us. Then it's several weeks later. And we've been searching this whole area for the weapons or for plans and whatever. But now it's time to get extracted because nothing's been going on. And there's also an airstrike that comes in to help. So as we're like, we kill dudes, we get to the extraction point, and then we almost get blown to death because the airstrike is a little too close for comfort. But that's okay. We get saved. But now instead of getting extracted from this area, we have to work up to another place. So at that point, we move out and we get the fuck out. And at some point, we got some data. I don't ever remember getting this. But it says, all right, you guys found the data that you were looking for. And I was like, thank you, game. I guess that happened off screen. So then we head back to the interrogation, and Shaw mentions that there was nothing but the data that I got. And then the next mission... oh, man. And we learned that Mason's heading to somewhere to take out the weapons, like the weapons delivery system, which is from the Black Ops game. And then we start playing as Captain Vance, who's just flying a experimental Russian fighter. And I missed this because I was like, why the fuck is it? Who's this guy? And why is he fighting this jet? And we just like fly a jet and shoot nothing. And then it's over. And I was like, the fuck? So then I looked it up, and it's like, oh, he stole. That was an experimental like Russian jet that he stole, and he was flying it back to like America so they could look at it. And does it have anything to do with Nova 6? I don't know. Like even like the wikia page was like shrug. So it's just like another chance to not fly a vehicle and do stuff, I guess. But at that point, we take over Shaw and crew again. But this time they're wearing winter gear because they're in Russia somewhere, and Russia's always in winter. Not Siberia, just Russia. We're in Russia. Northern Russia, actually. So I guess, yeah, sure. And this is another sniper level, which is fun. And it's funny because we're with Ruiz, Sergeant Ruiz, from all the way back in Cuba with Hayes. And again, Hayes he never showed up again after Cuba. And then Captain Patterson, who's like our tried and true best friend, who's always with us. And he's like, all right, Shaw, sneak up and kill those 3 guys with a sniper rifle. So I shoot one, and then I shoot the other one, and then I'm waiting for the other guy to stop so I can shoot him. And then Captain Patterson and Sergeant Ruiz like run out and start having a giant firefight with a bunch of guys. And I'm like, okay. So I guess that's what we're doing here. So we push on through, we get to this facility, we assault that, we go down the stairs. We're supposed to do like another sneaky part. That goes about as well as you think it's going to go. And then we get into like a room where we almost get poisoned, but then we don't. And I just stand there while like Ruiz and Patterson like figure it out. And then we get to the very center of the facility, and we set up a beacon to blow the whole fucking thing up. And then this is another blast that we get caught up in as we escape. And then we get dragged off by Patterson, who's like, all right, man, we're good. And then we got intel from that facility, I guess. I think I picked up something at some point in this mission. But that intel tells us that there's a sub base, right? Like the sub base from the other game. So we go to this other sub base. It's a different sub base that's like a water delivery system for Nova 6. Not the one that's, because the other sub base is the one that's delivering the message for people to release Nova 6 in America. But I guess this sub base, this submarine was going to like send the Nova 6 with submarines. And so, yep. So we learned about that, and then so we parachute in to this area to destroy the base. And this time we're on our own. It's final level, and it's so bad. And so Shaw's like, oh no, I'm on my own. And the first thing we do is we go to we kill some Russians, and we walk into like a shack that's just sitting right next to where we parachute in, and there's a radio. And so we pick up the radio, and it's like, all right, your mission is to go into this sub base, blow it up, and then escape. And I was like, what? Did I not have this mission before I parachuted in here? Like, I'm Shaw. I'm the guy who found the intel. And then I brought it back, and then we had like a brief about it before the mission started. Goddamn this game. All right, whatever, fuck it. So then we just kill our way down, and this is a really short level. We kill our way in, we kill our way down an elevator, and then there's the sub. We kill everyone in the sub. We like open up like a gangplank or whatever so that we can walk over to the sub, and we plant like 7 explosives or some, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 explosives for some reason. And then the game's like, all right, you got 2 minutes to get the fuck out. And then there's like 20 enemies in the way. And so if you stop to like jankily try to kill every single one of these guys, you run out of time and you die. So I literally just was like, run to the elevator, go up, run to this part, run out this door, try not to just die. Like I don't understand how you're supposed to be doing. Like I'm on rookie. I'm on the easiest difficulty in this game, and I'm cheating to have massive life. And I'm still barely getting through this level before the timer runs out. And I'm like barely killing things. I'm like running at them with knives and stuff. So like, I don't understand. Maybe the stylus is the way to go. Like if you're playing this on the actual DS and using the stylus, it like works great. I have no idea. Because like even just taking the time to aim and kill one guy can take like 10 seconds. And there's more guys than you have time. That's like your average, right? So if you're doing a little bit faster, you still got to move. You still got to take a very slow elevator. You still got to walk out the door and then like walk kind of far away before like the explosion goes. And then right before the explosion hits, when you finally make it, you do one of those things from Metal Gear Phantom Pain where you like pull the ripcord and the parachute shoots up into the sky. And you don't call for this. You just walk outside and be like, I'm a badass. And then a jet just like picks you up. And I'm like, that's not how that works. It's a very like timed thing, and you gotta like almost like kiting that thing in the air. Whatever. And then the credits roll. Yay, we beat the game. We stopped Nova 6 and stuff. And then after the credits, we go back to the interrogation room, and we learn that Shaw and Mason both accomplished a good thing by stopping the delivery systems, and that the madman behind Nova 6 is still out there. Which, if you play the other game, you know he's not, because we killed him. So, dun dun dun, we did it! Hooray! And that's Black Ops DS. Terrible game. That probably has nothing to do with the overarching storyline. But we're going to go ahead and roll right into the Black Ops, I think it's Declassified, for the PlayStation Vita. So I'm all prepped and ready to play this Vita fucking Black Ops game, and ruh-roh! The emulator doesn't... Well, the emulator works fine, but apparently the ROM of Black Ops Declassified does not work. And it works as in I can get it to start, and it is dark as shit, and I couldn't find any way to increase the brightness, and I went on to like the Vita 3K website, and they said, yeah, you can load it up, but you can't play it. And even if you can like jack around with the settings, I was like looking at forums, these guys are like, well, I got it to a point where I could at least like play the game. It looks terrible because it's so dark, but I can like see what's going on, and the game's still like broke in a few places, and it's completely unplayable. So that's okay. We have the Call of Duty fan wiki site, fandom site, or whatever it is. I think it's a fandom site that I used, where they literally have transcripts of all the stuff that happens in the levels, as long as like cute little summaries. So we're just going to review that for the story, because Black Ops Declassified, the Vita game, starts like right after Black Ops and leads right into not only Black Ops 2, but Black Ops Cold War, which is the next game chronologically in the series that we're going to play. And then we're going to do Black Ops 2, which kind of goes back and forth in the future, and then the Modern Warfare, the new ones that are in the timeline as far as I'm concerned, and then we'll finish up with Black Ops 3. And then in Black Ops 4 apparently is only multiplayer, and like it's very loosely associated with the whole situation. Okay, so for those of you who have not been following along, that's how this is going on. So the game opens up with a gentleman named Ryan Jackson, who I've never heard before, and he's being tasked to inquire about Woods, Mason, and Hudson. Yes, Woods is alive. And I mentioned this before, and this game doesn't really explain much about how he literally is holding a guy who pulls a grenade, and then they both jump out the window, and he somehow survived. But he did, and he's doing great, and no one talks about it. So, YOLO. And the game takes place from like the late 70s, mid to late 70s to like, it's pretty much just the mid to late 70s. And then the tie-in to Black Ops 2 takes place in the early 80s. So in the first story, we control Woods and Mason for the most part. And we start off, Jackson's recalling all this stuff to us about... Sorry, that was weird. He's recalling all this stuff about how he's charged with this investigation, and he's seeing these guys, and then he's like, the first mission that I'm going to talk about in my investigation is Woods was sent to Vietnam in 1975 because we have these parable systems, which are a cipher the KGB really wants, and the North Vietnamese army got one, or got three, because there's a lot of threes in this game, just because that's how video games work. And Woods and Hudson were sent to blow them up before the KGB could get there, and this is like the day before the final big like out of North Korea, or South Korea. No, not Korea. Sorry, fuck, Vietnam. And so Woods shows up, and right as he's in the middle of like setting a C4 on a parable machine, on the first parable machine. This is all like the cutscene before we even start playing the game. This homeboy rolls up and like fires a rocket for some reason into this room and blows up himself and the parable machine. And then Hudson's like, "Way to go, motherfucker! All right, Woods, there's 2 more to go. Let's do this." So we do. So apparently, these levels are all very short, so this is going to be kind of quick. So there are 2 more machines. As Woods, we go and we find them and we destroy them while Hudson yells at us over the radio. And there's a lot of Hudson yelling over the radio during this game because we don't play Hudson, and I haven't played it, so I don't think he's really like around. He's like around in spirit. And after every level, so that's the first level. So after every level, we shoot back to Jackson. And pretty much this game is just set up as like a series of events that are like loosely connected. There's a couple that are like direct tie-ins, but sometimes it's just like, oh, okay, 2 years later, this other thing's going on. So when we go back to Jackson, he kind of recalls like what's going on, gives us like a brief overview, and then it leads into the story. So Jackson is talking about how Hudson is super connected. He's like the most connected out of all the people in the CIA, and that he could get away with just about anything, and that he could get any mission he wanted. And one such mission is to rescue a buddy of his, Dr. something, and some other spooks who are captured by the North Vietnamese army. So how is he going to do that? Is he going to go? Nope. He's going to use Woods, which I don't understand. We play a lot of Woods in this. We literally played Hudson in the previous game, but whatever. So back in 1975 again, and short, I guess later on than the previous mission, Woods is working on this rescue operation. So he starts off and he's sneaking around, and then he rescues the first set of analysts, and then we go and he rescues the second set, and then he gets extracted out. And there you go. That's what he does. Back to Jackson. Jackson mentions that Mason's file is thick like a book, and the whole thing's almost completely redacted. But then he has ties to Dallas and all these other places. Like, oh, Dallas, like the end of Black Ops, when it was like heavily implied that he was actually the one who was Russianed to kill President Kennedy. Wow. That's as much as we get. We get a little like, oh, yep, he was in Dallas, all right, and there's stuff about it, but it's all redacted. Well, I guess we'll find out because Robert Kennedy is going to be releasing that at some point, I hear. So maybe it is true. Anyway, so now it's a year later in 1976 in East Berlin, and Mason was sent there to get an asset. And there's a lot of asset getting in this game as well. And so Mason's like hanging out, waiting, and he sees the asset on the street, and then, bro, the asset gets sniped. Oh no, what are we going to do? Mason runs up, and he finds some microphage on the body. And then he has to escape, but he's being attacked by like the whole Spetsnaz army or whatever in East Berlin, which is the Soviet bloc at this point, or the Iron Curtain, as you would call it. So according to the thing, you have to use night vision goggles a lot in this level to like sneak around and get out, and eventually, and you like shoot lights out and stuff. But eventually he makes it to a car and he escapes. Back to Jackson, he reveals that the microphage talks about the KGB front in West Berlin, which is led by a Colonel Belov, or Berlov? I put Belov, so that's probably what it is. Anyway, so according to Jackson, this colonel is a walking knock list. And for those of you who haven't seen Mission Impossible 1, which is like a movie from, I don't know, when I was in college or something. It was a long time ago, but it's really good. Anyway, a knock list, I can't remember what it stands for. It's like it's a sensitive, like undercover agent list, and it's all their secret identities. So this guy like knows everything about all these like Russian agents who are like secretly hiding in like West Berlin and stuff. And so Mason's sent there to get him and get him out alive. And this takes place like slightly after the previous mission, again in 1976, but this time in West Berlin. So Mason breaches into a compound, finds a whole bunch of intel, and Belov starts running away. And so we go after him, and Hudson's like, get him. And eventually Mason goes and he kills a bunch of Ruskies, and then he has to blow a hole in the wall. No, that's a different level. So in this one, he gets into like a fisticuffs with Colonel Belov, and he gets like a C4 on him, and then he like throws him or kicks him or drops him into like a bunch of Spetsnaz, and they all blow up. And Hudson's like, God damn it, Mason, we needed that knock list or whatever. And then Mason's like, I got it. It was part of that intel I picked up at the very beginning. I literally could have just grabbed it. We could have left. Oh well, went in Rome. So back to Jackson. It's a year later. It's like a year and a half maybe, because it wasn't winter in Berlin when this other one took place. So it's now the winter of 1977, and a contact of Hudson's mentions to Hudson that there is an attempt to resurrect the Project Nova at Mount Yamantau, which is the fun mission we had with Hudson and Weaver from Black Ops, where we like did all the ice stuff. We like sniped and had a cool crossbow and went into that whole thing, and that that was back in 1968, so it's almost 10 years later. Wow. So of course Hudson sends Woods over there. And the first thing that happens is that the level starts off with Woods crashing in a helicopter, and he's like, oh no, he escapes, and then he goes back to the crash site and everybody's dead, supposedly. So Wood fights over to like a facility. He doesn't find any survivors anywhere. And he sees that the Russians are doing some form of rocket testing. And then he also mentions that he reads about this Schulusel fella who's like a protege of Steiner's. And so he's like, I gotta go kill this motherfucker. So he does. He fights in the facility. He finds Schulusel like wet in his pants in the corner, and then he kills him. And he's like, all right. And he gets in a helicopter and heads out. Back to Jackson, where he tells us about how part of the intel that Woods found when he was there was that there was more testing in this other mountain, Mount Elbrus. Yep, Mount Elbrus. And that gets Hudson and Woods to head over to that mountain so they can kill some more Russians, and then so they can stop this rocket launch. And it's compared to that level, what was it, the count off or whatever, where you as Mason go with Woods and Bowman, and I think Weaver was in that level too. And you assault that the missile, and then you blow it up like as it's taking off, and it's like so crazy looking and unrealistic. But apparently we're going to do that again. So Woods is like, got this, I know what I'm doing. So it's still the winter of 1977, and he heads to Mount Elbrus. So Woods sneaks on into the facility, sets up charges, blows up one rocket, then he fights, blows up the second rocket, and then Hudson's like, you better hurry the fuck up, they're about to launch that third rocket. So you go, and you get that C4 right on that rocket right before it takes off, and then you pull up the clicker and go boom! So just like in the previous game. Well, in the previous game you used like an Akita missile system, but in this one, you blow it up with some C4. And it's like, hooray, we stopped it just in the nick of time. So back to Jackson, he now mentions that Woods finds out that one of those crash helicopter guys did survive. Oh no. And he's a POW now. And Woods is like, fuck, I gotta go get this guy. And this is where you find out that Woods apparently was in a POW camp on his own. So apparently after he blew up, what was that guy's name? Like Rodchenkov or something? Anyway, the second in command guy to Dracovic. Kravchenko. So when Kravchenko like blew himself up, Woods survived, but he got captured and got put into a POW camp. So he's like, no, I'm not gonna let one of my men be stuck in a Soviet prison camp. Fuck that. And then Hudson's like, no, we don't have time for this. And he's like, fuck you, Hudson, I'll walk. So it's still 1977 in the winter, so this is all happening pretty quick. And now he is assaulting Bashkortostan in the Soviet Union. And again, we start off like sneaky. He grabs a Russian, tortures him for information, and then contacts Hudson because he's like, hey man, I think this is ground zero for the Nova 6 resurgence, because these guys, there's like, it's really shady over here, and it seems like they're using Nova 6. And eventually as he works through the facility, he finds his buddy, and he's chained up with like a gas mask, and he's like, oh no, they were testing Nova 6 on this guy, those motherfuckers. And then he finds a canister of Nova 6 and blows it up with some C4. In fact, he blows up the whole fucking base. And then he runs, and he escapes by getting into a Hind and taking off. So then we head back to Jackson, and it's a couple years later. He mentions that in 1979 there was a false flag operation that went through, causing like a deep undercover agent to be found out by the KGB, and that they abducted him, and they were going to take him back and question him about all the stuff the Americans are doing in like Nicaragua. This is like right before the Contra whole affair situation. So Mason's sent to get him. So again, 2 years later, in 1979, in Managua, Nicaragua. So Mason in this level this level sounds awesome, to be honest, because he's doing Overwatch. So you're a sniping guy, and you see them about to trade the agent off, and then you shoot, or you wait for the agent to like attack one of the guys, and you start sniping dudes, and then he makes a break for it, and you snipe some more dudes, and eventually you have to like chase down the agent, so that he can help him get away by like shooting guys in different areas and whatnot. And eventually help him escape, and he does. He escapes, and everything's great. So then back to Jackson. Jackson now mentions that in December of 1979, so a couple years after Woods destroyed the Nova 6 thing, the Soviets executed Operation Storm 333, which was how they justified intervening in like Afghanistan, and they were trying to take it over, right? But no one takes over Afghanistan except the Mongols. And that Mason was again sent to rescue another asset who was in Afghanistan. So now we're in Kabul, Afghanistan in 1979. So this is like however long after this other previous event, the same year. So Mason tries to sneak in there, but then he gets ambushed because the Russians knew they were going to be there. Oh no! But he's able to like fight a bunch of Russians, and this is where he blows a hole in a wall, rescues the asset, and they get out to the extraction helicopter, but the extraction helicopter is being attacked. So then we have to get some RPGs and like kill people and defeat everybody so that we can hop back on the helicopter and get extricated or extracted. I know I can't say this fucking thing. And this level is like the last level of the game that deals with Mason or Woods, and this leads directly into Cold War. So chronologically, the very next mission is the first mission of Cold War, but then there's one more level in this game, and so so then we go back to Jackson, and Jackson has this whole thing where the inquiry into Mason Woods and Hudson has been suspended. And then apparently you hear like the tape rewind, and then you get Jackson talking about how there was a raid in 1982 with the Nicaraguan Contras against the cartels that the CIA was a part of. And this time we play as like a random CIA agent or whatever. And this level is important for Black Ops 2 because it kind of introduces its introduction of like the main bad guy for Black Ops 2, at least the past part of the scenario. And that's Raul Menendez. I think that's his name. Yeah. Okay. So in this one, you go through, you kill some dudes, you find like your first target. Your first target is Torres, who's like the biggest, toughest, meanest cartel bad guy there is. And then once you kill that guy, you get a call in from the CIA. It's like, hey, there's one more target. You got to get Menendez. And so you hunt that guy down and you chase him, and eventually you shoot him and he falls off a building. And when you go to the edge of that building, apparently, you look over and you see Raul Menendez, his son. And the CIA is like, hey, leave that guy alone. He's not a target, so we're not going to kill him, which was a terrible idea. As we will see when we eventually get to Black Ops 2, which Black Ops 2 might actually be after Black Ops 6, chronologically speaking, if I remember correctly. Because Cold War is technically Black Ops 5, and then Black Ops 6 is Black Ops 6, and then maybe it's Black Ops 2. I think because Black Ops 2 takes place in like the past and the future, so the future parts are like way later after Modern Warfare, but then the previous bits, I think they take place after Cold War. But we'll see when we get there. All right, cool. So that's the Vita game. That sounded kind of cool, and I wish I'd been able to play it because whatever. That DS game was so bad, but Vita games tend to be pretty good. I played several first-person Vita games back in the day. And I guess you can get it work if I had like the thing with the battery in the Vita, because I still have my Vita lying around, but I'm like, meh, we're not going to do that. But there you go. There's the mobile portions, and that's how they tie in and lead directly into Cold War, which is the next one up. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will catch you guys later. All right, bye.